Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Tarot. Welcome to my channel. So recently someone asked me if I have more botanical based decks or animal based decks, and that actually caught me off guard because I don't know. And so this morning I just decided to settle this once and for all, although my collection do keep on changing over time, of course. So perhaps I should do this once a year, I don't know. In any case, today we start with all of my botanical based decks. Let's have a look. So when I set out to pick the decks this morning, I realized that I need some kind of definition because I wasn't really sure of what consisted of a botanical based or themed deck. Because some of them you will see are quite obvious, like I'm looking at the Tarocchi Flora, in this case the Tarot of Flora. Well, that's pretty obvious that it is indeed botanical based. But what about, for example, the Woodland Warden's Oracle? You've got animals and you've got flowers or plants in there. So is there more animals or is it more plants? And so for other decks, that kind of came to me as a bit of a difficult decision too. So what I decided is that these will respond to two criteria. The first criteria, there will be a, let's say, a prevalence of botanica on the decks, so on the cards. And in case there's a doubt where, for example, we can have a bit of animals and a bit of flowers and plants as well, like the Woodland Wardens, in this case I will decide based on the energy of the deck. So if that deck feels more like a botanical deck to me or an animal deck to me, it will go into either one of the videos that I'm going to film. So I hope that's clear, and I'm not entirely sure that it is for me. I did pick all of the decks and I'm quite happy about it. But let's have a look. So we'll start with the Tarocchi Flora. So this is quite obvious. It's by De Vecchi, published by De Vecchi, and it's by Massimo Alfaioli and Maria Eva Di Maggio. This is a really beautiful deck. It's a summary kind of deck. Flora is the same word in Italian and in English because it comes from the Latin word flora as well. It's based on flowers. It's a rather large kind of deck, as you can see. Let me just pick a tarot standard size. There you go. This is the Foragers Daughter. As you can tell, it is wider and also taller, which makes it not the easiest one to shuffle. However, these decks, so I've got a couple from this publisher. It's the Flora, the Japanese Tarot, and the chest of the Oracle chest. They are absolutely fantastic. I really love the stock, the card stock as well. I love the fact that the backs of all of these three decks are really beautiful, as you can see. I'm actually thinking about edging them. I've heard a couple of you, once they saw this deck, they actually bought them, and I'm hoping that you're also satisfied with them. So these decks, the Japanese one a little bit less, but the Flora definitely is a bit pippish. So obviously we're looking at really nice, beautiful majors. Look at this death card, it's just fantastic. I don't know if I've said that before, but in Italy you rarely see the death card with the name. It's called the Nameless Arcana. And then you have these pips, of course, although you do have a different flower represented by each suit, which, you know, it could help. And it could represent a bit of a, an attempt at decorating the pips as well. So this is the suit of wands, for example, and this is the suit of swords, as you can tell. So it's a really beautiful deck. It's a very summery kind of vibe. It's it pairs up with well, all the other 20 or so botanical based oracle decks that I've got. It reads really well as well. What I do like is that these peeps are actually aesthetically pleasing, and as a matter of fact, I really like it when I can use a peep style deck because it actually lifts let's say, my mind off from the cards, if that makes sense, in the sense that I actually have more time to think about the meaning of the card, of the proper meaning of the card, rather than looking at the symbols on the card when, for example, I read an RWS deck. I will definitely pay attention to the symbols on the card because it's always very important to establish a connection to the deck itself. And so you will do that when you pay attention to the things that make that deck different from any other deck. What is the author trying to communicate to me when they're putting exactly that symbol on specifically that card? There is a message there. Do I recognize the message or not? So that's a way to read the RWS for me. Whenever I have a Pippish deck, instead, my thought process actually thinks about the card itself, the meaning of the card. I may pay attention in some cases to the fact that there are decoration and everything. There might be a reason why this particular flower has been chosen for the suit of pentacles, or there might not be. But it is easier to just create your story or to create a message around the essential meaning of the card. So I actually enjoy both, let's say, illustrated minors and non-illustrated minors because of different reasons, for different reasons. It's just something that I really enjoy whenever I read for myself and whenever I read for others. It's an exercise that I really enjoy. Now, as you can see, I have a bit of a struggle to fit the cards in, but you know, then you get used to just find a way to do that. So this is the Tarocchi Flora, published by the Vecchi. And let's have a look at another one that is quite obvious. Now we've got the Rosebud Tarot here. I had seen it around for a while. Most of the time I'd seen it in the indie version. And I have to say I really prefer the backs of the indie version, but that's okay. I got the mass market version and I thought to myself, it's probably going to be one of those novelty decks that, you know, I'm just gonna decide or, you know, kind of try and bond with the deck, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, it's one of those decks that I don't mind rehoming because they are mass market now, they're readily available, they're actually really reasonably priced, or at least here in Australia. It has been published by, is it US Games? No, it's actually Wiser Books, isn't it? Yes. And so, you know, you just go to Amazon and you can find these decks. But I started reading with it and oh my God, it's elemental. It's fantastic. The collage, it's really conducive of a really good communication with the deck. I absolutely love the fact that they have renamed the core cards. In specific, I love the fact that pages are called Curiosity, because that's a really beautiful way to look at the essence of a page. I love the majors. I love the minors are fully illustrated, as you can tell. It is, you know, a clone of the RWS in the sense that obviously it follows the traditional meanings of the cards, however, with different kind of symbols. I love this 5 of fire, which is 5 of wands, obviously. There is a chuckle to be had when you look through these cards, but it's not just that. It's actually a really deep kind of deck. I promise I would not have thought of that when I kept on seeing it. You know, either you look at it on Instagram or you look walkthroughs of people who got it on YouTube, or, you know, you talk about it with your tarot friends. But when I actually got it in my hands, I really could appreciate this deck even more than what I thought I would. So, for example, just one thing that I really enjoy about this deck is that the suit of air is really beautiful. Beautiful is probably a different kind of word that I wanted to express. It's interesting, but it's the positive kind of interesting. Therefore, that's why I thought about saying beautiful, because it's not the grim kind of interesting. It's a very positive kind of interpretation of the suit. So the air, obviously the suit of the mind, the suit of swords, but this is very elemental. Yes, you do see these specific, I think it's a specific name of scissors, shears. or something like that. I could be wrong, sorry, but it's the ones you use, you know, to basically to cut off flowers, roses in particular, the ones that have a little bit of a thicker kind of stem in the garden, which, you know, clearly points to the sharpness of the swords, but also the sharpness of the mind. And I really, really enjoy this Six of Air, the Six of Swords. It's absolutely beautiful to me. There's, you know, that sense of looking up towards the future and that sense of hope that you don't actually find in a lot of decks. So I really enjoy that. It's a beautiful interpretation. I love this death card. There's so many cards that actually every time that I use this deck, it actually makes me think. Ironically, I'm not really using it too much for readings yet, because I feel like I really want to stop and look at the cards and really learn how to appreciate them first, because I feel like this deck has got some way of telling me something. There's a message here and I really need to be prepared to hear it, because in some cases you cannot be ready. You can have a deck and it's a very profound kind of deck, but you're not ready to hear the message and you kind of miss the opportunity, you miss the window, because then after a while you don't look at the deck with the same curiosity that you had at the beginning. Does it make sense? I think that it's the first love, you know, the one in which you are more open to see things. After a while, you think you know a deck a lot. You think you probably know it so much that you don't need to pay too much attention to it anymore. This deck is absolutely beautiful. I really, really like it. That's the Rosebud Tarot. So the next tarot deck with the botanical theme is definitely the Midnight Magic tarot deck, which is based on mushrooms. It actually says so by Sarah Richard. It says a tarot deck of mushrooms. But this is absolutely fantastic. It's another one of those decks that it's really kind of slapping me on the wrist, because, you know, I buy these decks thinking, oh, okay, it's a cute one. You know, yeah, it's a cute one. I'm gonna have it because I like it. I like the theme. I like the artwork. It's gonna be one of those decks. It's gonna be one of those novelty decks. And then I get to talk to the deck and I get to use it. And there's a bit of an interview going on and there's this kind of inspiration coming from it. And I'm completely blown away. And this happened with the Rosebud Tarot and it happened again with the Midnight Magic, the month of June, both of them. So it's actually something that I'm really excited about, because I have two decks that came within a week to each other that actually make me think that I really want to go deeper. This is, sorry, I forgot to say, it's by Simon & Schuster, published. It's just one of those decks that you wish you had more time to work with it because you want to know more about it, and then you go down the rabbit hole, and that means that you start buying all of the decks with mushrooms, and that's what happened to me. And I thought I would have been strong because I already had the Mushroom Spirit Oracle by Rockpool, which I got from the Mind, Body and Spirit festival in Sydney. But when I got the Midnight Mushroom, I was blown away. It was just really, really beautiful. Not just the colors, I mean, the colors really contribute to the sense of awe, the sense of surprise, and also the beauty of the deck itself, because I am someone who really appreciates colors. But it's not just that, it's the interpretation of the mushroom, very specific mushroom for each card. There is a little bit of an explanation, obviously, on the book, on the guidebook, but you also have the Latin name and the English name of the specific mushroom on the card. That actually did not mean much to me at the beginning. However, I was explaining this when I was showing you the Mushroom Spirit. I did used to go mushroom hunting when I was little in the Dolomites with my mom and dad, and with my dad at the end. And what happened was I actually started recognizing the names, not by the English name, because obviously being Italian, I was calling them with the Italian name, but because the Latin name is very similar, rather the Italian name comes from the Latin name. So obviously there's a bit of an easiness for me to recognize the Latin name. I actually recognized some of these mushrooms, and it brought me down into some kind of a really nice melancholic moment in which I was remembering going mushroom hunting and, you know, picking them up at the beginning because I really love colors. Of course, I was going for the Amanita ones, which are the deadly ones because they're really colorful. And then, you know, being told, no, that's not the one you want. You actually need to go for the less colorful ones because ironically, the best mushrooms don't have bright colors because nature wants them to be dull so that predators will not eat them. It's ironic, isn't it? But you know, the Amanita, which is the really bright pink one, actually rather red one with the white speckles on it, that one is really deadly. And you know, it's nature itself that, you know, sends out a message saying, yes, I'm colorful, yes, I'm pretty, yes, I'm beautiful, but because of that, you will remember not to eat me because I'm actually killing you. And the ones that are brown or gray, you know, that kind of dull color, they're actually the good ones, but the predators won't see them. So it's a way of defending. I guess it's a way for nature of defending itself. So this is the Midnight Magic Tarot. The next 4 decks are all my Janessa Jazz tarot. So actually we'll start from the 4th edition and then we go progressively. So this is the 4th edition. I don't know, I bought the 7th edition first. I'm going backwards. When I got the 7th edition this year, I fell in love with it. I really fell in love with this deck, and I decided that I needed to buy the other editions as well. But if you don't know, it's actually quite difficult to find them because they're all out of print. I think the 7th edition might also be out of print now. I don't know whether Janessa will want to print another edition, but she does actually change. There are a few changes from edition to edition. I think that the only 2 editions that don't differ much one from the other are the 3rd one and the 4th one, which is this one. Then she had a major change in the 5th edition, which is the next one that I'm going to show you. Then she went back to the jumbo size for the 6th edition, although there was also normal size 6th edition and also a mini size 6th edition. And then for the 7th edition, there's actually a couple of changes. I really love this deck. It's, I don't know what it is. When I used to see it, you know, on YouTube, as I said, or, you know, Instagram or Facebook, I didn't think that I could connect with it. But when I got the 7th edition in, I don't know, something clicked. Something really clicked. And especially because I started pairing it immediately with the Universal Folk Oracle and published by US Games. And there was such a really strong conversation going on between the decks that it was an honor for me to actually witness that. I wasn't the person trying to interpret the cards in that case. I was one spectator. I was in the audience. I was actually looking at them and admiring them and enjoying the conversation. And ever since then, I really tried to find the others. And I found the 5th edition, and I was really happy because it's slightly different, it's substantially different from the other editions. And then there was this fantastic lady from Minnesota that was selling the 4th edition and the jumbo 6th, and she gave me a wonderful price. I'll be forever grateful because I could afford both of them and the shipping to Australia, which was simply amazing. So this is the 4th edition, and this is the 5th edition. As I said, it is rather, there is a change in the size, as you can tell. Just to give you an idea, this is the 6th edition, and it's called Jumbo. It's more similar to the 1st edition when it comes to the size, and this is the 7th edition, which is the latest one. And when it comes to size, I think we're, yeah, I mean, it's a bit thicker. Let me show you. Yeah, as you can tell, it's a bit thicker, but sorry. So it is a bit thicker, but when it comes to the size, it's more or less the same. So let's have a look at the 5th edition. which is this one here, and then I'll show you the 6th and the 7th. So the 5th edition is also different, let's say, when it comes not to the artwork so much, although because of the difference in size and shape, what happens is that the cards have been cut in a different way. So obviously you will have more or less of the image on the card. You will have less when it comes to the height of the card, but you will have more when it comes to the width of the card. And the major change, as you can tell, is the tones. So where the 4th edition was based on, let's say, a bit of a mix between a pale kind of, should I call it yellow? I'm not sure, it's a kind of a beige, warm beige, I don't know, am I making up names? Probably. And purple. This one is actually more like on the green tones. So this is quite sought after. If I may say, I've seen it selling for $250 Australian. In some cases, even for more than that. How beautiful is this 7 of Cups? And I believe that it's because it's indeed the one that stands out from the collection because of the rather, let's say, significant changes. Look at the Wheel of Fortune. So obviously this deck is, Janessa is based in Galicia. Galicia is the region of Spain which is on the border, let's say, it's on the northwest, it's on the border with Portugal. And I was watching the movie Arrival yesterday because I really love that movie because I love languages, and whenever there is, you know, attention placed on languages and translation and the essence of translating is very important to me, and it's something that I actually apply to tarot as well. Tarot is a language, and tarot readers are just translators. Of course, when we translate, we create a story, so we do become storyteller, but the original message is actually given to us. We don't make it up. So I was watching Arrival, and at a certain point, Louise Banks, Dr. Louise Banks, who's you know, the protagonist of the movie, the Hermit card is just absolutely gorgeous, talks about, she's giving a class, and she talks about Portuguese, the birth of Portuguese language. And she says, and I'm sorry, I have yet to verify this, but she says that Portuguese comes from Galicia, so from Gallego, which is the language which is spoken in Galicia, which is the region of Spain we talked about before. And in Galicia, they saw language as a way to express arts. And so it's beautiful because she was saying that Portuguese was born as a language that stems out of appreciation for the arts. So I really love that kind of idea. As I said, I didn't verify that. This is what is in the movie, so it might not be correct. I don't know. In any case, this is indeed Gallego. It's the language that is spoken in Galicia. This is the 5th edition of the Janessa Jazz. And this is the Jumbo, so the 6th edition. As I said, there were a couple of editions for the 6th one. One was the Jumbo, which wanted to, let's say, emulate the 1st edition. That was this size. And then there was a normal size edition and the mini as well. To be honest with you, I haven't seen the mini. There was someone selling it on my Facebook page a while ago, but after that, I haven't seen it. So I don't know how many she actually made of the mini. I've seen more the Jumbo than the others on this edition. So I love the Jumbo because, well, as you can imagine, because you can really tell the images on the Jumbo. I mean, they're so large. They're quite large, aren't they? Just to give you an idea, let's see, I've got the Foragers Daughter here again for comparison purposes. So okay, so this is the Foragers Daughter, and as you can tell, it's a bit wider, but it's a lot taller. So it's really a lot more of, you know, the artwork that we're going to appreciate because of this different size. And let me tell you something, this deck is, well, it is botanical based, and that's the reason why it's here. I love this Emperor card. It's probably one of my favorite Emperor ever. And the fact that I've got it on this jumbo edition, which lets me see all the details, you know, and in some editions, for example, it had to be cut at this level. In some other editions, you don't actually see the arc of, you know, the top of the card. So I really appreciate to be able to see all these details because I have the jumbo. All of the majors are just absolutely amazing. And by the way, this cardstock is one of my favorite. It's very similar to the feel of the original US games from the 80s. So if you know that kind of buttery, and it also reminds me a lot of the Somnia tarot. So I was saying all of the majors are just absolutely superb. These could, you know, if I had a print of this, I would definitely hang it on my walls. Probably not with this one. I wouldn't want, but even the tower, this is actually a very specific flower. Apologies, I don't actually remember the name. I did read about it once, but it actually does look like that. And it's just a phenomenal thing to see in nature. It's something so beautiful and so important. And look at this judgment card, it's just superb. I love the fact that there are associations with flowers in this deck. I have seen, so as I said a couple of times before, there is now available on her website the guidebook on PDF, so on an electronic file, of the Stunning Tarot for the 4th edition, but not of the Janessa Jazz Tarot. However, on her Instagram feed, something like, I don't remember, it might have been 5 or 6 weeks ago, she actually posted like a table of correspondences for the major arcana. So there are correspondences with the name of the major, the name in Gallego, the name in English, and then the flower that is associated to the major. So that could be something interesting if you were interested in you know, knowing a little bit more about the botanical associations and stuff like that. I do recommend you follow her on Instagram because she's posting, you know, and she used to be more active in the past. I hope that she will be more active in the future, but everyone, you know, whenever it comes to social media, if someone is taking a break, you know, go for it, absolutely, because sometimes we actually need it, don't we? So if she's just taking a break from social media, I completely understand. And I love this King of Pentacles. It's absolutely fantastic with this skull. So this is the jumbo edition of the Janessa Jazz, the 6th edition. And here we got the 7th edition, which is the latest one. So it was actually sent out in January, or around January, I would say. At least it arrived in January to Australia. I've actually been using this quite a lot because, as I said before, I really love pairing it with the Universal Folk Oracle. They pair well because they share a very similar, if not the same, color palette. But it's also because I believe that there's a lot of directionality that you can read in these cards. They are borderless. Well, other editions are borderless as well, but in this case, you can really feel like there's some kind of continuity in between the cards. I love this Emperor, this version of the Emperor. It's got a more saturated kind of lavender color and purple color together with the greens, which makes it really stand out, and I really, really love it. So this is slightly smaller, as you can see, but it is a really good size, and I really like and I really enjoy the artwork in all of them. So if you're familiar with them, the artwork is not that much difference. The only differences that I was pointing at before were on where the cutoff on the card is. Obviously, you'll see a little bit more details in the 5th edition on the sides because it is a different shape and so on and so forth. But it is the familiarity that I got now with this edition that actually makes me use this edition much more than the others. I hope I won't ruin it because, to be honest with you, so it's still that kind of size that I'm having issues shuffling, and so I have to find different ways to shuffle it. And obviously the more you use the deck, you know, the more worn out it will become at a certain point. And because I do believe that it's actually out of print, I'm kind of worrisome. I'm almost looking for a backup copy of this edition because I bonded with it so much that I just don't want to, you know, get to the point of saying I can't use it anymore because I will ruin it. But in any case, so this is the 7th edition of the Janessa Jazz Tarot. And the next deck is the Herb Crafters Tarot. The artwork is by Joanna Powell Colbert, which is the same illustrator of, probably also author of the Gaian Tarot. And it is written by Letitia Guthrie. Now this deck, it is still botanical, but when I saw it, I was like, okay, should I pick this or not? And then I thought, of course you should. But see what I mean? So this corresponds to my first criteria. If the images are botanical related, then it should make the cut. Not the cut in the sense that the others I will give away, of course not, but it should have been in this video rather than in any other category. However, why did I hesitate? Because somehow I feel like the energy of this deck is not botanical. It's more witchy. I don't know how to explain this. It's because it's obviously looking at the properties of the plants and the flowers and the essential oils. It's looking at, you know, cacao, for example. This to me has got a very ritualistic kind of energy. And I do associate rituals with a more witchy kind of practice. Or, you know, ancestor related. Something that in any case ironically is still botanical based, because of course it is. I mean, come on, this is all botanics, but somehow it's just giving me different vibes than the other decks. So for example, the Janessa Jazz tarots, they're all, to me, they're all botanical, and I would never hesitate to call them that, because not just because the prevalence of the flowers on the artwork and the images, but just because the atmosphere that they evoke, the kind of energy that they conduce is pretty much like that. This one is just different. It's just different, and I really like that it's using cattail for the 6 of air, by the way. Because I look at the feathers and I thought, hang on a second, yes, I do see the air, the symbol of air, but feathers are not plants. So I look for, cattail, of course. Yeah, that's amazing. I love this deck. I really, really enjoy using it. I will never feel like I know enough about this deck to be confident not to look at the guidebook. So I will always have to look at the guidebook. Which is fine, because you know you cannot know everything, and on top of everything, I feel like we have a certain amount of storage in our brain. And when we actually learn new stuff, it's almost like you have your collection of tarot decks, and sometimes you're just running out of storage and you have to let go of one when you get a new one. So in my brain, there's only so much I can retain of information, and sometimes I have to let go of something that I don't use anymore. I'm probably not making much sense, but it's a matter of, you know, it's almost the economics of the brain, the economics of knowledge. You have to be economical in your space and efficient. But this deck, I don't mind actually going back to the guidebook whenever I use it, because it's really a pleasure to read anyway. So this is the Herb Crafters Tarot. Now, I feel that all of the decks that I've shown you so far, I had, apart from perhaps the Herb Crafters, for the reason that I explained, I didn't have any hesitation in picking them for this particular category, so botanical-based decks. When it comes to the Foragers Daughter, ironically, I had a little bit of a hesitation when it comes to the artwork, but I had no hesitation when it comes to the energy, which is quite the opposite from the Herb Crafters Tarot. And the reason is that, yes, there are a lot of plants here, but there's also a lot of animals. And it feels like, I don't know, in some cards you almost don't have any reference to plants. In some cards you don't have any reference to animals. So it was a difficult choice. I went for the energy instead. So what is the energy that this deck is communicating to me, and I definitely feel like there's this kind of botanical energy. So botanical energy for me is all about renewal, because if you look at the botanic world, if you look at plants, flowers, trees, what have you, you will always see this sense of cycle. So there is a cycle of, you know, going through the, well, look, this is actually the ephemerality card. It's an additional card to the 78. This deck has got some really good additional cards. I really enjoy this concept of, you know, going through stages, going through the cycles of nature. The death card, of course, comes up when I talk about that. And this deck is all about that. And the fact that it's called the Foragers Daughter, I think it's a really beautiful way to look at this kind of energy, because it really does convey the continuity. So it's not the Foragers Daughter, so it's not the, let's call it the first generation. It's not the first generation, it's the daughter of the first generation. So we're already looking at the second generation. We're already looking at someone who's learned from the ancestors how to do the job, and how to just convey this sense of tradition and continuance and cycle of nature. And this deck is absolutely beautiful for that. This is, by the way, this is the Afterlight edition. Now, this was a giveaway that I received from Jessica Lai Howard. Very generously, she accepted to ship to Australia, and I was very, very grateful. It's a fantastic deck. It reads really, really well, especially when you're doing end of season kind of readings. So at the end of a season, you feel like you're ready to continue to the next season, and this deck will give you just that kind of a push. So if I use it in a spread, and perhaps at the end of, so we don't have the same seasons in Australia that you have in the Northern Hemisphere, of course, and we just passed Yule. For us, it was a couple of days ago, we celebrated Yule, and I know that you know, the winter solstice, and in the Northern Hemisphere celebrated the summer solstice. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of people posting bonfire photos. But at the end of the season, I have a special spread that I use, because I need to sort of make some kind of an inventory of what happened during that season, how I related to the energy of the season in specific, and how am I preparing for the next season. So creating this kind of continuity, this kind of cycle. If you're interested, I might actually do a video on that. Let me know in the comments below. So this is the Foragers Daughter Tarot. The next tarot I want to show you is the Black Violet Tarot by Heidi Phelps. This is called the White Edition, because what happened was that in the latest printing, there was a bit of a miscommunication between the author and the printer. And if you have this deck, you will notice immediately as soon as I can get it out of the box. So what happened was that there was this miscommunication, and instead of having, you know, the black background with the black shiny stamp, which I can't, yeah, there you go. You can tell that the black is a bit shiny, it's a bit glossy. So the normal edition, let's say, has got black background, and to differentiate, to make the flowers stand out, they have this kind of shiny gloss stamping. The printer thought that they wanted the white background. May I be honest, I actually prefer this one. When I saw it, it was on sale in one of the Facebook groups I belong to. I saw it, and I couldn't, you know, normally you have to write sold as a message down on the photo of the decks on sale, and I couldn't, my fingers was like sleeping, because I was so scared that someone else was gonna write sold before I did. So I think I actually misspelled it, but in any case, I was really happy that I could finally get it. It's a really beautiful deck. It's, if you're not familiar, so the Black Violet Tarot. There's a couple of different editions. There's also a Cherry Blossom edition, which has black, white, like this one, but also a little bit of a cherry pink, or a, to me it looks more like a pale cherry. But it's a really beautiful one as well. But I really wanted this one because compared to the cherry pink, the cherry blossom edition, The artwork is actually larger. Even though the cards have the same, let's say, size, the artwork is larger, so you can actually see it better. Well, there you go. The reason why it's here, well, first of all, because it's called the Black Violet, but it's also because it does, as I said before, not just display a lot of flowers and plants on the cards themselves. There is that kind of botanic energy that I really feel strongly when I look at this deck. It's an absolutely joy. This deck is, using it is amazing. I cannot recommend it enough. It's the fact that it's black and white. The feeling that you have by looking at the cards is it's as if the cards were actually fully colored, because there is so much detail and care about, you know, for example, the expression. Let me see if I can show you the expression on this person on the Eight of Cups, looking back at the cups that they're leaving behind. They're not happy, but they are determined. So you can almost see that their lips are tightened, you know, like as in determined. It's just amazing, and all of these small details, it's absolutely superb. I love this Ten of Cups, the Sun. All of these cards, they are just absolutely really, really beautiful, moving, touching. There's something, there's a very deep and impactful as well message. Let me tell you, whenever I read for this tarot, it gets straight to the truth. It really does not beat around the bush. It's a very straight reader. And I appreciate it for it, because sometimes we need to hear the truth in a very straightforward way. I love this Devil card because it reminds me so much of Cruella, is it Cruella? From the 101 Dalmatians. And it's just, you know, apart from these references, obviously, it's just myself. I'm seeing them there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has been created with that in mind. What I mean is that it's beautiful when a deck is actually communicate something even extra to you because you like it so much that you actually start recognizing it as if it were familiar already. And may I say, I absolutely love this Nine of Swords. First of all, because I do have this problem with my hair. I have long hair, and if you have long hair, you know. If you know, you know. And the Nine of Swords representing the anguish and the anxiety and the worry that comes to you at 3 a.m. at night, and you just wake up and it feels like the world is collapsing onto you and there's nothing ever that is going to be okay again. And I love the fact that it's got roses on the blanket, because it's the kind of symbology that tells you that there will be rebirth. So that to me is why I'm choosing this deck for my botanical video, because there is this sense of rebirth, there is this sense of cycle, of continuity, of something that, yes, it has to die because it will be reborn again. That's the only way for this to actually start a new cycle. So this is the Black Violet Tarot. This next deck is the Antique Anatomy. This is the mass market edition. And if you're familiar with Claire Goodchild's work, this is coming from the indie edition was not like this. This is coming from the ephemera edition. So it's the one with the flowers, and that's the main reason why this is here, basically. But it's also because I do believe that there's a lot of that kind of rebirthing energy in this deck as well. And I absolutely like this deck. It's one of my favorites. As a matter of fact, I used to, probably during the lockdown, because I remember thinking to myself, whenever I was looking at, there you go, whenever I was looking at the Elixir suit, I was thinking about the vaccine. Okay, my mind. You know, during the lockdown, we can all be excused for making some kind of correspondences that have absolutely nothing to do. But I really liked using this deck with the Green Witch Oracle, which I can show you later, because it actually pairs really well. But why don't I show you now? Because I'm talking about it, I might as well show you. It's a nice way to show you two decks at once. So this video is not going to be 3 hours long, because as you can imagine, these are only the tarot decks, and then I have the oracle decks, which are actually a lot more than the tarot decks. So as I said, I really enjoyed pairing it with this one, which is the Green Witch Oracle, published by Rappel by Sherilyn Darcy. I love Sherilyn's work, but let's talk about Sherilyn's work later, because we're still talking about the tarot decks now. So we're here for the tarot. I'm just going to show you that these two, the Antique Anatomy, pairs really well with the Green Witch Oracle. Now there's something to say about the cardstock. Sorry, I think this is a bit crooked. The cardstock from the Antique Anatomy, I don't know which edition I have, because what happened was that I got it a few years ago, and I did not have much room at that time in my shelves, and so I just eliminated all of the boxes. So I have something like 50 tarot decks in bags. And then after that, I decided that it was actually not a good idea to get rid of the boxes, because it's actually nice to see them. They look like books. And so I keep the boxes, although I still sometimes put the decks in a bag. Does it make sense? I hope it makes sense. So I don't actually know what edition I've got of the Antique Anatomy. I couldn't have a look at the book, so it might be just easy to do that. But I've heard a lot of people complaining about the cardstock. I don't think it's this edition. I actually don't mind this cardstock. Yes, it is a little bit papery. You might call it a little bit cardboard, similar, let's say adjacent, if I may say. But it shuffles well for me. So I'm not, I'm happy with that. I don't know whether the other edition, perhaps people are complaining about, is a different edition from mine. So I don't know. Because I think that the major complaint is about the thickness, that is just too thin. This one is not thin at all. As a matter of fact, as you can tell, it's got a really good bounce, excellent durability, I think. So it's not thin at all. So as I was saying, these two, it's just a joy to pair them up together. Sometimes they even share the same flower. There is this sense of communication that happens between them, not just because of the common elements that they might have, but to me the most beautiful thing is about the resonances that you can find between the keywords, the plant, and the elements on and the symbols on the tarot. So I really enjoy this botanical deck, this Green Witch Oracle, because it's got a lot of elements. It's also because if you don't know a lot about alchemy, it's a really good way to approach the elements, the 4 elements, because it does give you the possibility to recognize the association between the keyword and the element of fire, for example. So you've got this kind of, it's not a teaching deck, what I would call a teaching deck per se, because it also is a very decorative deck. And because other than, you do have the element, you got the symbol, the zodiac symbol, and you got another couple of symbols that can eventually help you understand the depth of the keyword on the card. But other than that, to me it's just a really beautiful deck, not just a teaching deck. But as I said, these two are just amazing together. I used to use them a lot together years ago. As I said, during the lockdown, it was just all I could do to just use these two together. And then, we finally did find the vaccines. So I stopped associating the elixir to the vaccine. And I don't mean anything with that, absolutely. Elixirs were actually the original concoctions that were prepared to prepare medications, to actually compound medication. And it's very interesting because I'm actually starting to learn about alchemy in let's say a bit more in depth of what I used to. And it's all about compounding. It's all about that kind of preparation, because alchemy is the study of transformation, and obviously medications originally, so elixirs originally, were actually seen as let's say something prepared out of elements of nature to incur in a transformation, to catalyze a transformation. So these two, as I said, this is the Antique Anatomy Tarot and this is the Green Witch Oracle. So the last tarot deck that I want to show you today for my video on all of my botanical themed decks is the 22 Corals for 22 Arcanas by Osvaldo Menegazzi, published by Il Meneghello in Milano. I know that corals are not plants, corals are actually animals. There's no two ways around that. However, to me, I don't know, not just the energy of corals, but the shape and the feel to it, it just feels like they are plants. And I felt like I wasn't cheating by including this deck here, because I really felt like it belonged here, because some of these corals are absolutely beautiful, colorful, amazing. The shapes are just fantastic, and I don't know, it feels like they're as beautiful as flowers, but also because there is that kind of sense of energy, of the continuity of the cycle in nature. If you live in Australia, you will know we have corals everywhere. Even where I live, I just need to go to the beach and just go in the ocean and just will see coral. And it's just, they are so beautiful, they're amazing. Even in the water, they have these kind of fantastic, brilliant colors that sometimes they really take away your breath, because it's just, they look like miracles sometimes. I kid you not, it's just amazing sometimes when you see them, and there might be a small fish, a tiny fish just swimming around, and it's just something that it's unique. It's something that, I've been traveling a lot, and I can tell you that going scuba diving or even just snorkeling, it's just an amazing experience when you can see fish, absolutely fantastic, but when you can actually appreciate corals, that makes it all so much better. So I felt like I wasn't cheating if I wasn't including this tarot deck into this video. So the 22 Corals for 22 Arcanas. And these are all my tarot decks with a botanical theme. Let's have a look at the Oracle. So I don't have any particular order, but I have been talking about Sherilyn Darcy when I showed the Green Witch Oracle. So let's continue. And I've got the Flowers of the Night Oracle by the same author, also published by Rockpool. I absolutely adore this deck. This is one of the older kind of decks from Rockpool, in the sense that it's got a really shiny, glossy kind of cardstock finish. But this deck is really beautiful. So these are Flowers of the Night. So there's obviously a theme in here. It's not just the theme of, let's say, creation and continuity in the cycle of nature. It's a very specific time of that cycle. So it's the night time, and it points to perhaps replenishing of the energies that we've lost during the day, perhaps the rest that we need, perhaps that kind of stillness that sometimes we feel during the night when we're not sleeping. And it also pairs them up with a few animals here and there. But to me, this is definitely a botanical deck, even though you can see a couple of animals, not that many as a matter of fact. And I do believe that these are all animals that are actually nocturnal, so they actually are more active during the night than they are during the day. Same as with the flowers. And it's just, isn't it amazing that there are flowers that are actually, almost define the law of nature, because obviously we know that the photosynthesis takes place when the sun is active. and at night you don't have the sun. However, the entire process of the photosynthesis comprises also, it's including also whatever happens at night. It's a cycle, it's a continuum, it's something that is not just in one phase or another phase. It's actually the totality of that. And I really do appreciate that there is this possibility through this deck to appreciate the part that happens at night as well, because we need that too. It's not just everything is under the sun, everything is sharp and black and white, in the sense that you can under the light of the sun you can obviously tell everything with sharpness. Whereas under the moonlight, you cannot do that, because everything is kind of, you know, the contour, the borders of things are not as sharp. So obviously there is a bit of uncertainty, but I like that too, because that's sometimes we also need that. And we conclude with the Awaken card with the Blazing Star. So this is the Flowers of the Night by Sherilyn Darcy. And the next deck is the Herbal Astrology Oracle by Adriana Ayales, and the artwork is by Josephine Clerks. Now this deck is, well, it's also, no, it's published by Hay House. So it's got the typical Hay House cardstock, which I actually like. This deck is an absolute beauty. It's really, really beautiful. But as you can imagine, because it's called the Herbal Astrology, I kind of asked myself, okay, is it more something that you would categorize as cosmic, you know, because of astrology? And I thought about the way I use it. So please don't get me wrong, this deck has got a lot of references, it's got a lot of symbols, as we can see. And in many cases there's associations to the cosmos, to the zodiac sign, to astrology, hence the name, the Herbal Astrology deck. However, the way I use it is mostly focusing on the herb that is depicted on the card and on the keywords that is associated to it. So there might be other people actually delving much more deeply into the astrological association, which is absolutely fine. It's probably a better way to use this deck, because let's face it, we have so many herbal or botanical decks that we really need that one more. But in my case, I probably am considering this, do I really need another herbal deck? Well, this one is very safe and secure, because I actually absolutely adore the artwork. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's got mushrooms, look at that. But I do believe that other people, the ones that are actually looking at the herbal and the astrological association, actually do believe that this deck is a unique part in their collection because of that. And it's just, it pairs really well with the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, by the way. It's like they're made for each other. They're absolutely beautiful. It pairs really well with the Gentle Tarot as well. I would say it pairs really well with any earthy kind of tarot deck. It will pair really well with the Foragers Daughter as well, and probably any other botanical deck. I haven't tried it with the Janessa Jazz 5th edition, but it feels like they could pair really well as well. So ashwagandha, I was actually looking at a YouTube channel the other day, and we're talking about the ashwagandha because it's actually really helpful. It's a very natural, obviously, ingredient, and it's really helpful to lower the levels of cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So if you're in a stressful situation, ashwagandha is recommended for that. Having said that, I haven't tried it, so I cannot, you know, I can't tell you whether it works or not. They do say that it does. There's actual studies that prove that, but always do your own research, because we're all different. We're all different, and our bodies react in different ways. But this is the Herbal Astrology Oracle. So the next deck is the Tree Magic Oracle deck by Gillian Camp. This is a really beautiful deck, but this kind of, I have a couple of issues with this box. Like it's, I don't know, it's because of the humidity perhaps, but it kind of gets stuck. I can't really open it. And so what I did, I just, I put the deck, I took out the book and a deck, and I put the deck in the bag, and I put the book in the shelves, but I just wanted to show you the box. So these bags are just absolutely beautiful. I really adore these bags. They're not reversible, but in an oracle situation, you don't necessarily want to read reversals. I really like this deck because, well, as you can imagine, it talks about trees. A couple of details. It tells you what tree it is, then it gives you one keyword. If you just want one keyword to focus on, for example, the yew tree is about renewal. But then what I really like is that it gives you an example of course, the tree, then it gives a bit of an example of the foliage and the ventral fruits. And then it gives you a couple of sentences or a message in order for you to, if you want to do some kind of meditation. So if you just focus on the keyword, obviously you would use it in, you know, as a focus point between tarot cards or as a send-off message after a tarot reading, or the usual way you use your oracle decks. Or if you want to use just one card for meditation, you can definitely read the messages that are on the cards. And these are absolutely beautiful. It is published by Psycho Books. I really enjoy it, and it's just something that I really love. I think that in the botanical realm, trees are definitely my favorite. I really like the fact that they're so big and majestic. And look at this, the eucalyptus tree. Love reveal, because there's a tiny koala. It's so cute. So these decks are really, all of them, they're very much cherished, in the sense that I really do appreciate them. And if you watch my channel, you will know that I don't hesitate in rehoming a deck. If I get a new deck in and I try to have this conversation and it just really doesn't work, and I always try hard. It's not just a matter of, you know, sometimes I may not be ready for the deck, so I may give it a try at a later time. But if I see that it's just not working, I don't want to force it, and then in that case I also don't want to leave it on the shelf to just gather dust, because I really do believe that there's a lot of artwork and a lot of effort that goes behind you know, the production of these decks, and so they do deserve to be loved and to be appreciated. And so I don't have any hesitation in rehoming them, because I know that someone else will give them the love that they deserve. So this is the Tree Magic Oracle deck. The next deck I want to show you is this beautiful Soul Trees Ascension deck. This is by Alison Williams Yee, and it's the Ascension edition. So there's a few, if you go to Alison's website, you'll see that there's a few decks. They're all Oracle. I don't think there's any Tarot deck. The colors of this deck are just absolutely fantastic. I mean, look at creativity. So it's called the Soul Trees, and there's a reason, because obviously it's, well, let's say 99% of the cards is actually showing trees. It's watercolors, which is one of my favorite way of, you know, for illustration. The keywords are absolutely spot on. So let me tell you the story of this deck. It came to me because this is one of the decks that were sold at a really good price, because they had some minor flaw, which I really don't mind, and so I got it for a fantastic price. And when it came, I tried bonding with it, and it was too blunt for me. So the messages that I was receiving were just too direct, and it was in a period of time in my life in which I just could not deal with too much directness, even though I am a very direct person. But sometimes I just, you know, you need to hear the message, but bit by bit, sometimes you just can't take it. And so I just set it aside. But as I said, I don't necessarily rehome a deck immediately, even if it doesn't necessarily work at first. So after perhaps a couple of weeks, I felt like I was actually called by this deck, and I felt called by using it, but I didn't know how to at the beginning. Because finding a tarot deck that pairs up with this much vibrancy of colors is not that easy. So you either go to the opposite, you go to a very muted color deck, but even that wouldn't work, because the black and white wouldn't work with this, and it depends on how busy the artwork is, because this is a very busy deck. So instead of trying to pair it up with a tarot deck, I actually started using it on its own and just pulling cards out of it. And that is the best way to use this deck, at least for me. That is absolutely what works best. It's the messages are manifesting. They're manifesting the intention. There is some kind of bluntness to it, but it's a bluntness, let it go, that really helps you. You may have to wear a helmet when you use this deck, but it will help you. It is actually very amazing. I was going through one not so good day, and I was very miserable for whatever reason, and I pulled a card cleanse, and I took it literally. So I started cleaning the whole house, and I felt better after that. I felt better, and it was, you know, probably because on a neurotransmitter level, obviously, you exercise will give you dopamine, and dopamine makes you feel good, etc. You know the scientific explanation of everything. You don't need me to tell you that. But what I'm telling you is about this deck, that it's the equivalent of a very deep and powerful work on yourself. And it is that kind of instrument that will give you that kind of possibility. So I've actually said to myself, this deck is very safe. It will stay with me because it's a very, yes, it is a very direct deck. And sometimes, you know, I might not be ready, but when you are, it actually is a life changer. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. So the Soul Trees Ascension deck. And I talked about this deck before. So this is the Mushroom Spirit Oracle by Nicola McIntosh, and it's a very recent acquisition because I got it from the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival in Sydney. This is published by Rockpool. I have to say, kudos to Rockpool. They're really doing some major improvements on their quality. I really like it. Whether you like the colors or not, that's not what I want to express with that. The term improvement. Improvement to me is better quality, also depending on the needs of a tarot reader. So you can have really good quality, might make it so that it's impossible for a deck to be used. This is actually a combination of better quality of the cardstock, the finish that is, you know, matte and really good. It's got a really good bounce. It's sturdy. It's durable. The gilding is, I don't particularly like this color, but it makes sense because of the theme of the deck. So it's a mushroom deck, and but it's not the kind of gilding that will scratch your fingers when you use it, and it doesn't chip very easily. I love the backs as well. So there's a couple of things that are changing for the better, and I really do appreciate. And I think that, you know, whenever there is an effort towards improvement, it needs to be applauded, because obviously it's an encouragement. I love this deck. Other than, you know, the features of the cardstock and everything, I actually like it because it uses very strong colors for the mushrooms. And I can assure you that I've actually seen one of these. It doesn't look as bright in real life, but I really like it. I like that it's, you know, represented this way. I love the fact that there's the name of the mushroom, but it's also associated with a keyword, which is very important. Bleeding tooth, for example, is associated with stagnation, which is perfect. I've never seen this mushroom. So I love the fact that there's mushrooms from all over the world. It's not just one particular region. And in my case, you know, it's an eye-opener because I actually had no idea. Well, the Amanita is probably one of the most common ones. And as everyone knows, or I hope that everyone knows, it's actually one of the deadliest ones. It's beautiful. I mean, if you've never seen this one, it actually does that. It actually explodes at a certain point, and it releases the spores in the air. It's actually quite amazing to look at, and I love the fact that the keyword is let go. So it's almost quite obvious, but it's a beautiful one. So as you can imagine, it pairs really well. Let me show you, because I've got the Midnight Magic. So let's see, because we talk about pairings and I feel like I'm taunting, but then I'm not showing. So let's have a look at how it pairs up with the Midnight Magic mushroom deck, which is right there. I have another mushroom deck that I will show you later that I believe pairs, actually, as a matter of fact, why don't I show you now? Because it is another deck, I might as well show you. So this is the deck of mushrooms, an illustrated introduction to fascinating fungi by Dr. Sapphire McMullen Fisher. So I can't find the Smith Street Gift. So it's illustrated by Marta Zafra. So this deck is not a divination deck, and it's not an oracle, so it doesn't have that kind of use of the others. However, it is incredibly beautiful to look at. First of all, it's an excellent quality. It's art paper, but it does have all the description of the specific mushroom in the back. So appearance, growth, uses, which is very interesting. And what I really like is doing this kind of pairing. So using, in this case, quite unusual, the tarot deck in the center for some kind of focus and direction. And then, let me put them in the center of the frame. And then using the two, so the oracle deck, obviously to expand on the message of the tarot deck. And then just in this case, I'm trying to learn a little bit more about the mushrooms and trying to find some kind of an association with the specific mushroom and the keyword. There's, as you can imagine, there's a lot of mushrooms that are actually recurring in all of the three decks. I think the Amanita is in all of the three decks, probably because it's one of the most common, you know, mushroom, but it's also one of the most recognizable ones because of the colors. And I just absolutely love the way these three talk together. There is this kind of conversation going on. When it comes to a deck that is not necessarily an oracle, or it doesn't necessarily have a keyword, what you can focus on is, for example, if the English name has got a particular name. So for example, in this case, we got the ghost fungus. Okay, the Latin name doesn't point to ghost, but it's really interesting that it came with the Seven of Wands and the shiitake, which is the nourishing. So to me, what you look at in this case is the resonances between colors. It looks as if this eternal light mushroom is almost as ghostly in appearance as the ghost fungus. So this to me creates that sense of continuum, almost a directionality in the cards to tell me that you start from something, you evolve. So you start from something elusive like a ghost, something that you're not necessarily aware that it's there, because that's the nature of ghost. And then you move into something that is actually eternal light mushroom. So eternal light is referred back to the sense of the Seven of Wands, of being the only one against the other, sticking up to your guns, and just the resilience that in some cases is associated with the Seven of Wands. So I really like this sense of continuity from something that is not yet concrete. It becomes more and more so, stronger and stronger, and it needs this kind of nourishment to go on. So you're encouraged to stand up for your own beliefs, even though perhaps they're not the most common belief. Perhaps someone around is actually pushing you in a different direction, but you're sticking up to it. In the beginning, you might feel faint, but then you need to nourish yourself because you actually are on the right path. And I do believe that it might sound like, you know, it's something perhaps difficult to do, associating these three decks together because of the fact that this one doesn't have keywords, but you always look at different ways to actually make it work. And I do believe that if you let a deck speak to you, it will. You just have to listen. It's just really a matter of listening to what the message is. And just as I was saying before, we are translators in some cases, we are interpreters, and in some other cases we're actually storytellers. There you go. I always like finding the Amanita because it's just so pretty, isn't it? I mean, it is the most colorful, let's say, kind of mushroom. And ironically, it's the one that you really cannot have because it will kill you. Whereas, for example, there are other mushrooms that look really ugly. Really, like you don't want to go near them, but they will be absolutely delicious when you eat them. Anyway, so we were talking about it. So this is the Mushroom Spirit Oracle, and this is a deck of mushroom. But let's talk about this deck. How beautiful, how absolutely stunning is the Magical Botanical Oracle by Maxim Miller and Christopher Pentak. When I saw it, this is published by Lo Scarabeo. It's one of those deluxe production because it's got a 2 parts boxes, and it's a very sturdy and heavy one. The book, I actually call it book, not guidebook, or little white book, because it's got nothing to compare it to a little white book. This is absolutely like a book, by all means. It's really beautiful. I don't want to break the spine, so I'm kind of really trying to be very careful and opening like this. So what I can show you is, the willow. You got a full page illustration of the card. You got the name, you got the Latin name, you got the planets associated with that particular plant, with the symbols of the planet. You got the element associated with that, with the symbol of the element. You got the magical meaning, you got the plant spirit medicine, you got the divination meaning, and you got reversed divination meaning, and then at the end of it you got an affirmation. I mean, you could work for months on this deck alone. I'm not kidding. That is, let's say, one of the most beautiful things about this deck. The most beautiful by far is the artwork, which is absolutely spectacular. Let me just see if I can zoom in, because it is slightly smaller than others. Sorry, it's not smaller than others, it's smaller than the previous ones. So it is an oracle deck, but it's in between, let's say, if I can show you. So this is the size of the Mushroom Spirit, which is the rock pool, let's say, generic oracle size. So this is the Lo Scarabeo production. Lo Scarabeo is changing sizes, because I remember the Journey of the Lonely Soul has got a size which in shape which is more similar to the rock pool oracle rather than this one. So I don't know what they've done in this case, but as you can tell, it is smaller, definitely smaller, narrower. So this means to me that it is ironically much easier to use because of the size, because some smaller sizes are better for me. And I absolutely adore the artwork. It is just, I cannot find any other adjectives to use other than stunning, because it is like that. There's a lot of symbols, there's a lot of associations, as we've seen before when we were looking at the book. There's the one thing that I'm a bit, that I think that it's lacking, or, I would have thought when producing this deck, because it is so beautiful and because it is a treasure to have and so informative and such a teaching kind of deck, that they could have put a keyword on the cards. Instead, you do have the English name of the, in specific, in this case is the sunflower. Then you also have the Latin name, you have all the associations we talked about before, but you don't really have a keyword, which means that you always have to go back, unless you know your way around the symbols and the associations with the specific plants or flower. You will have to go back to the book, which is not a problem because I really adore the book. So it's absolutely fine. This deck has got that kind of feel, like a bohemian, Art Nouveau kind of feel to it. That reminds me a lot of many, I'm thinking about the early 1920s, for example, the poems by some Italian poets. And they were so busy, so rich, so powerful. And my mind goes straight to that kind of association, and ironically, we do see these kind of really strong elements in the cards. But this one, for example, this one to me reminds me a lot of the El Día de los Muertos in Mexico, because you will see skulls with these kind of decorations on them, on that particular the Day of the Dead, let's say. It's an absolutely joy to use this deck. It's really fantastic. But as I said before, this is a 9 out of 10. and I don't want to be the grumpy old Karen, but I would have loved for it to have a keyword. Now, I am looking into buying a handheld printer, like an inkjet printer, but not the normal one, the desk top one that you can, it looks like a pen as a matter of fact, and you can hand hold it, and you can print on anything. So basically, if I get it, but I was reading the reviews and they were saying that it's not that good. The one that I saw on Amazon, they were not very good reviews. But if I get one that actually works well, I'm thinking about using that deck and then just printing a keyword at the bottom, because my handwriting is terrible, and so I would ruin a deck if I were handwriting something on it. But if I could find that kind of printer, it's not really expensive, it's actually $100, but I need to find one that everyone says that is working well, and so far I haven't found anything. If you know what I mean, you know, it looks like a pen, but it's a handheld inkjet printer. So you can use it to print on labels, for example. And not that I will print on labels, because I want to print directly on the card. But let me know if you know of any brand. I think the one I'm looking at is We Are Keeping Memories. It's called We Are Keeping Memories, or We Are Memory Keepers, or something like that. So this deck is, I keep on talking. This is the Woodland Wardens Oracle deck by Jessica Rowe. Now in this case, I had to decide, because there's a 50-50 element, you know, animal and botanical. And I had to decide whether it had more of an animal energy or botanical energy. And I think that this is quite literally 50-50. So I just couldn't decide. So I decided to include it here. I may include it again in all of my animal themed decks, because every time I look at it, you know what, it depends on what I pair it with, and it also depends on what I use it for. So in some cases I will feel like more the animal energy appearing to the surface. In some other cases I will feel like more like the botanical energy. So the animal energy to me is the energy of movement, is the energy of the spark of light, is the electricity. It's also the resilience of the animal, because I see the animal kingdom as something in constant evolution. So there is that sense of nature as well, of course, because animals are part of nature as well. But this is more like referring to the movement, whereas the plants are something more still for me. This is a really beautiful deck, and I've seen a lot of people trimming off the white borders. I don't dare doing that, because this is one of the very few decks that I have absolutely no problems in riffle and bridge shuffle. And if I trimmed it down, even with a professional trimmer, which I have, I would actually decrease the easiness with which I can riffle shuffle it. So I'm actually keeping it this way, and I don't actually mind. I think it's actually quite fine. You know, if the artwork would have been slightly bigger, would have been better, but I'm not complaining. It's beautiful. It's a muted kind of color palette, which I really appreciate. It gives me that sense of autumn. So this is the Woodland Wardens Oracle. So the next deck, and we're almost done, is the Essential Oils Healing deck. This is an absolute joy to use. I've shown this deck on my channel several times because it's absolutely gorgeous. It's not just the artwork, which is amazing. It's the color palette, which is fantastic. It's obviously the images, but it's also the fact that it does show you the English name, the Latin name. It gives you a bit of a keyword to it, but it also gives you the way in which you can use this particular essential oil. So in this case, it's for, you know, aromatherapy with a diffuser, but it's also for aromatherapy for a massage. It's called that geranium. So it's really nice to have a deck like that. And to be honest with you, I've been looking for a deck on essential oils for ages. And the only one that I found that I really, really loved, that is very precious and very elegant to me, is one by an Italian creator. She's also a tarot reader, not a tarot reader, she reads energy. She's an energy reader. And I'll show you her deck later. But because I had to buy, she didn't ship to Australia, so I had it shipped to a friend of mine in Italy, who then shipped it to me. So obviously it ended up being quite expensive on top of everything, and obviously it is in Italian. But it is such a beautiful and elegant deck, but I didn't have anything, you know, at the time. I had to wait for it. And I found this one on Amazon for a very reasonable price, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I really enjoy pairing it. This also goes really well with any kind of witchy kind of deck. For example, if you use the Seasons of the Witch oracles by Rockpool, no matter what season, this deck will actually pair really, really well with them, because it does have that kind of sense of, you know, the sense of association that you have between nature and the cycles of nature, and the practice of witchcraft, or, you know, traditions from the ancestors, however we want to see it. So this is the Essential Oils Healing deck. And since I've been talking about this deck, I'm actually going to show it to you next. It's called Le Essenziali. So the essential, as in refer to the essential oils. The author is Stefania Zani. So as I was saying before, this author, she's Italian. She's reading energies more than tarot. I've actually never seen her reading tarot decks, but she has a really active Instagram account where she gives an energy reading every day. I absolutely love this deck. The quality is spectacular. It is printed on art paper. The backs are absolutely fantastic. She's not the illustrator. Let me just see, because I think it says here Filippo Manassero is the illustrator. So the booklet is amazing, because it does have, you know, the full page of the referring back to the card, and you've got the name, you've got the zodiac sign, you got the chakra, you got the planet, the characteristics, and the keyword. Obviously, you will need Google Translate to read all that, but you also have the esoteric interpretation, which is very interesting. This deck is fantastic, and the way in which she reads it is really out of this world. I'm not exaggerating. I really love this deck also because it does have that kind of Japanese wood print, what's it called? Not ukiyo-e, it's the wood block print. And I really, really do like that. It's got also a sigil here. I think the illustrator did that on purpose, that they actually really took some inspiration from Japanese illustrations. It's so beautiful, it's amazing, it's very simple, very minimalist, as you can tell. But I really love it. It's fantastic. It's something that really makes you think. It's very conducive for, let's say, energy readings, but it's very conducive for personal introspection as well, because it would definitely tell you. So as you can see here, there is a keyword, and it would definitely tell you something related to the card and the plant or flower in specific, but also something that will really resonate with you. The attachment, for example, for the cypress, and the incense with the father. It is a very direct deck, because this is rage, for example, with thyme. It is a very direct deck, so it reminds me a little bit of the soul trees kind of direct approach. So you cannot, I don't think I can actually use it all the time, and I actually don't even feel like using it the usual way I use oracle decks as a focal point between two tarot cards, because it actually reads a lot better when you read it on its own. But it is absolutely superb. So she has a website. I will put it in the description box below, but as I said, she does not ship outside of Italy, unfortunately. So it is not an easy deck to get. However, if you are Italian, or if you know someone in Italy, or if you want to contact her, because perhaps she will be willing to ship, you know, overseas. I don't know. I had this possibility through this friend of mine, so that's what I've done. And we're almost there. This is the second to last, and this is the Listening to Flowers deck by Dina Salisi, illustrated by Audrey Violet. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the names, I have no idea. This is a very new deck that I just got yesterday, so I still have to understand, you know, how to bond with it, how to use it. What I do know is that it is absolutely fantastic, and it does remind me a little bit of the previous deck, so the Essential Oil deck by the Italian creator that I showed you, because the quality of the cards is very similar. This is also art paper, as you can tell, it's very thick. Let's say the nature of the illustration is very similar as well, although this one is full color. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's an absolutely gorgeous deck. Really, really beautiful. So listening to flowers, so obviously these are all flowers. This is one of my favorite flowers because it grows in the Dolomites. If you turn it, then you'll have the name of the flower, a small also drawing of the flower, and then you will have a little bit of a message. For example, for gentian, in Italian we call it genziana. It says, I meet challenges with enthusiasm and conviction. I continue my journey with renewed hope. I have faith in the process of absolute success. Wow, that's a wonderful message. So this is, it's very beautiful. You can use it for meditation as well as many other of the decks we've seen today. But I actually feel like using it in this case the normal way I use a tarot deck, sorry, an oracle deck. So with a tarot, in a pairing with a tarot. I still have to find the right tarot, perhaps the Foragers Daughter, perhaps the Black Violet, perhaps the Janessa. I'll have to see. I really like it when I can actually, you know, do a bit of an experiment and see which one I like best. I also had a very quick look at the booklet, and it does look like it only gives you the messages of the on the cards. It does divide them in different kind of categories, and so this is a really interesting section of the book, because I don't know if you have the same, but when I was little I used to have a kind of association for each and every flower. I don't remember them anymore, because then I think that they have been, you know, juxtaposed by different associations that I've gained through the years by reading tarot, for example, or oracle decks. So I cannot tell you if these associations here refer back to the ones that I used to know. But for example, everything that is associated to fear. Rock Rose is associated to terror, panic, and nightmare. Mimulus with fears that can be named. Nervousness and timidity. Cherry Plum with fear of losing control. Suicidal thoughts, my goodness, irrationality. Aspen, fears without reason, uneasiness, apprehension. Red Chestnut, fear, worry, or anxiousness about loved ones. I probably have this one. I probably would pull this one in these days. Uncertainty and insufficient interest in present circumstances, etc. So you got a bit of that kind of association. And at the beginning of the book, you know, let's go back to the fear ones. So we've got this category. One is fear. If we go to the last one is Red Chestnut, and the message is, my connection with others is guided by pure light. I trust in the welfare of my loved ones. I embrace a calm, peaceful mind. Okay, I vow that this is going to be my mantra for the next 5 weeks. Red Chestnut. I don't know where to find this, but that could be interesting. So it is a really beautiful deck. Really, really, the production quality is amazing, and let me tell you, it was very affordable. I think it was around $30 Australian, which is very affordable. So the listening to flowers. And now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with me till the end of this video, because we got one last deck. And it's the Oracle of Oddities, and the reason why it's here is because, well, it's the same reason why the Antique Anatomy was here. So I do believe that there is a lot of botanical energy that goes on in this deck. Let me just zoom in a little bit. There's a lot of bones, obviously. If you don't know, this is the same author as the Antique Anatomy, Claire Goodchild, and this is the 3rd edition of the Oracle of Oddities, in the sense that I just removed them from the packs, the top boxes, and put them together. And this is an absolute joy to look at. I absolutely adore this deck. There are flowers and plants in almost every card. I was saying in every card, but I can't tell for sure, so I'm saying almost. But one thing that I can tell you for sure is that the energy of this deck is of perpetual renewal. It's of that kind of continuity, the cycle of life and nature that I associate with my botanical decks, and therefore it felt like it was the right choice to include this deck into all of the decks that I've displayed today. It's a very beautiful deck. I really enjoy it. Sometimes it can be taken seriously, sometimes it can be taken with a bit of a chuckle. I was pairing it up with the Zombie Tarot, and it was definitely more of a chuckle rather than taking it seriously. However, you can also pair it with other decks. For example, I'm thinking about the Deviant Moon. In that case, there definitely will be no chuckles. There's a lot more of introspection going on in that case, but it's a beautiful deck. It's a very versatile deck. I don't have the Memento Mori because it's supposed to be a Lenormand, if I'm not mistaken, but I may look into it because I'm really, in this period of time, I'm really appreciating this kind of artwork. I really think it's very beautiful. So thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. Don't forget about my giveaway, the sketch from the Chariot card from the Bonestone and Earthflesh Tarot, signed by Ana Tourian. And in order to enter the giveaway, you just have to send me an email with the title giveaway to the email address info@fairlightwellness.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day.